Please don't be mad.
We've changed our minds.
Okay, so we need to explain ourselves, but first a bit of backstory. Most of you already know Moose, but for those who don't, we bought him last year from a scrapyard for just £1,500. In the time it's taken us to strip the old horse box from the chassis, repair and renovate the truck, we've had a lot of ideas. And we thought we'd settled on what we wanted to do, until last week we realised that there was just this niggling feeling that wasn't going away.
There's an idea that we just can't get out of our heads.
Do you guys remember when we talked about
Moose's modular mounting system? We originally wanted to be able to detach our habitat using a hydraulic system and then reuse Moose for other tasks. Well, we changed our minds because we figured that if we were ever in a situation where we needed to demount our home and mount other attachments, then we would probably already be on our own land, and in that case, the habitat wouldn't need to go back on anyway.
So instead, we leaned into the idea of turning Moose into a full-on truck camper, with the idea that the habitat would come off again permanently one day, and then Moose would get a new lease of life as a flatbed or something with modular attachments that we could use on the land.
We did build the hydraulic legs, but that's for stabilising the camper because we want to have big slide outs on both sides to maximise the living space.
That leads us on to another reason why we're switching gears, and we will tell you what gear we're switching to in a minute. We've been putting a lot of time into designing our tiny home on the back of Moose, but we're having to compromise on a lot, mostly space. Well, mostly height actually. We've already planned to go as wide as legally possible, which isn't ideal because it might be quite cumbersome to drive if we're right on the limit of what the UK roads will allow us, but also we lose so much available height to the chassis, and we don't have a great deal of length to compensate. Our current design has a bedroom/living room with the bed coming down from the ceiling, but even when it's stowed away, Pete has barely any headroom. And if we go much taller, it's just gonna get silly, it'll add extra weight, and you know the drill. So here's the idea, and I think we kind of touched on it a bit in our video, but at the time we didn't think it was really possible for us. I think we didn't have the confidence then that we do now, but now it feels like we could handle it, even though it is still totally bonkers.
We are going to chop Moose in half right here. Seriously, we're going to chop Moose in half right here because we're turning Moose into what's called a tractor unit or an articulated lorry. Basically, you know when you have those big lorry trailers and then the thing towing it? That's what we're making. And then we're building a fifth wheel style tiny home trailer instead of a motorhome. Please don't be mad. I know what you might be thinking, and it's probably one of the questions we get asked all the time, and that's where and how do we learn to do all of these things? Well, it's a combination of a few things: online research, YouTube videos, and just trying things to see what works. But that can be a bit hit and miss, especially if you're trying to learn something that takes a lot of actual skill, like building kitchen cabinets, drawers and shelves, things that we have to do a lot of soon. That's where Woodworkers Guild of America can help, and they're sponsoring this video. They're an online resource full of step-by-step videos, project plans and proper instructions. Cabinet making, joinery, table saw techniques, jig building, tool sharpening, the lot. I've been looking through their videos on cabinet layout and jig making to help prepare myself for what's to come. It's all taught by actual woodworkers who explain things really clearly without overcomplicating anything. There's loads of content for beginners and more advanced stuff too, including tips on workshop setup, gluing and clamping, and tool selection, which is great if you're building up your tools slowly like we are. If you're interested in woodworking or you just want to improve your skills, then the first 1,000 people to use our link in the description can join for a full year of premium membership for only $1.49, and that offer's valid for new members only. I don't think I've even scratched the surface of what this platform has to offer, and I'm really excited to look into it more and hone my skills. So thanks again to Woodworkers Guild of America for sponsoring this video. Now let's see what these two are on about.
We love Moose, but we feel like we're settling for something that isn't quite what we want.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little story. Way before this all started and before we got Moose and stuff, the dream was to get a big old ex-military truck and turn that into a motorhome. But while I was looking, I found this really cool old DAF military tractor unit, 4-wheel drive. It was a beast. And I thought, wouldn't it be super cool to get that and then build a trailer, and then you've got this awesome utility vehicle and your motorhome in 2 separate bits.
But they're really expensive.
Yeah, it was like £15,000. And also the idea of building a tiny home on a trailer was really scary. Like, I had no idea how we'd even begin doing that. So fast forward a bit later, we found Moose, and although it was a bit of a compromise, it was something. But now...
It wasn't a compromise at the time. We loved him.
No, we did. We did love him straight away.
But we didn't think that we could do the whole Arctic thing.
So now we can't shake the idea. Every single time I see like a small lorry with like a little mini trailer, I'm like, oh, that would be so cool, let's do that. And Hayley's like, we'll do it next time. But this has already taken a year. Next time I could be like 50, I don't know.
Next time may not happen.
Yeah, so why do it next time when we could just do it now? We've kind of chucked ourselves in at the deep end so many times, and I think we've proven to ourselves that we can do anything.
Whatever. And we want a big living space. We want the big RV dream with all the slide outs and a living room and a bedroom and space above our heads.
We want a vehicle that's useful no matter where we are or what we're doing. With our current plan, we're always stuck with a large motorhome, and then to get around, we'll have bicycles.
And we don't want to get rid of Moose.
No.
Moose is like our son.
So enter the fifth wheel tiny home trailer idea.
From here on known as Moose's Caboose.
So basically, Moose is going to be turned into what's sometimes referred to as a mini Arctic or an urban Arctic. And they're just like the big lorries you see towing massive trailers, but just kind of shrunken down and on a smaller weight scale. And the trailer is essentially like a American style RV fifth wheel / tiny home hybrid.
We're using a step frame trailer design, also known as a step deck or a drop deck low loader. And this way we can utilise all of Moose's remaining chassis, and we'll get more height because the trailer will be nice and low.
We've not decided on the dimensions of the trailer yet, but at least now we have the freedom to design and choose whatever size we want.
I think it's time for one of our patented pros and cons lists.
Classic.
We can think of a few really good reasons for doing this, and then a handful of
strong reasons not to do it.
Difficulties we might encounter.
Let's start with the pros. So we just touched on it, but we have the ability to have more space, and we'll definitely have more headroom, but also we'll have more weight to play with.
Yeah, Moose's train weight will be 11 tons.
Yeah, so there's not going to be much weight on Moose itself, so we could easily have a
Himself.
What did I say?
Itself.
Sorry, Moose. Himself. So we could easily have a trailer that's like 5 tons.
Cool.
Yeah.
That will take a weight off of our mind.
We're still going to try and make stuff out of lightweight materials because, you know, the lighter it is, the more efficient Moose is going to be and have an easier time towing it.
I think it would be nice to give ourselves more living space and to choose the dimensions of the tiny house instead of being stuck within Moose's dimensions of what we can have. It would be nice to be able to go narrower because a lot of you have said that even though we are on the limit with our width 2.55 metres, for a 7.5 tonne that is going to be quite tricky on the roads.
So we could make it narrow, we can make it much longer. And at first I thought making it all longer would actually make it more difficult to drive, but apparently driving an articulated trailer is easier than driving a rigid truck in terms of manoeuvrability.
You can let us know if that's true or not.
So once Moose is converted, he'll be a very usable and useful vehicle. So it's not going to be much bigger than a medium wheelbase van, and we're thinking of putting a bed on the back like a pickup truck, and then we'll have a really useful truck. We can easily fit materials in for building the trailer. We don't have to hire a van every time we want to do stuff.
Yeah, it'll be great because when we're off travelling, we'll be able to drop off the trailer and then we can still drive Moose wherever, and he won't be that big.
But it also means that if Moose breaks down, like we're not stranded, like our trailer can be moved by other vehicles. But also it means that our home is quite difficult to steal because it's not just on the back of a truck. So overall, once it's done, Moose is going to be like this really cool utility vehicle, which is exactly what I want.
The next pro is that it's going to be easier, we think, to have it MOT'd and reclassified. Because it was all a bit of a headache trying to figure out how we were going to MOT Moose as a motorhome before we convert it into a motorhome. So we're going to have to wait, and then if it fails, then what do? We've put all this work in.
Yeah, if DVLA decides we can't reclassify it, it becomes really difficult to get an MOT because it's technically
It's not an HGV.
Yeah, it's really weird. So I think it'll be much easier to get Moose reclassified as probably a tractor unit and then get it MOT'd, and then we can drive it around before even the trailer's done. We weren't going to be able to drive Moose for like a year until the habitat's done at this rate. So,
yeah, this way we can drive him much sooner.
Yeah, road trips. Take Moose on some trips, use him, get materials. I'm a little excited. So overall, that whole deal with the DVLA should be, hopefully, easier. Okay, cons. Basically, all of the cons are it's going to take more time and cost more money.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's what it comes down to. There is some quite annoying logistical stuff to figure out. Red tape around modifying a truck, shortening the chassis, that kind of stuff.
You need to get permission from Mercedes in order for the DVLA to reclassify. They want that evidence that Mercedes say that it's okay.
And the other thing is that we've done a lot of work to Moose already that we will have to undo.
Moose's legs.
Yeah, Moose's legs are going to have to come off, but we can reuse.
My box!
And the box that you welded, yeah. But we can reuse it all because the hydraulic legs will go into the trailer to level and stabilise the trailer. And the box will be used for something. Maybe the box can stay on the side of Moose and be a storage box or something.
Okay. I think the biggest challenge is going to be, well, the fact that we have to build our trailer from scratch.
Yeah, we can't really buy one because all the ones, at least that I've found, that are this kind of design, they're all commercial, really heavy duty. They've got like max payloads of like 30 tons and stuff. So the trailer that we would buy, like just the frame,
would be our whole weight allowance.
Yeah. So we have to make something from scratch, but that's quite cool. You know, we can make it exactly how we want it.
And then that trailer that we build, we think that because it's still going to be towed by a commercial vehicle, it will need to be MOT'd itself and have a VIN number.
Yeah, it'll go through an assessment organised by the DVSA, and you have to take it somewhere, and then an engineer looks over it and goes, yeah, that's good, or no, and then...
That's more red tape.
And then I guess the other thing is I'm going to have to do my C+E full license, which is cool, but it is quite expensive. It's about £3,000, at least around where we are. I might technically not have to. I might just be able to get a C1 plus E, which takes me up to large trailers. But because our vehicle is a commercial vehicle, I'm not quite sure, but I think that means you have to get the C plus E. But I would want to anyway, because at least then I'd get proper training with an articulated trailer. But yeah, we'll figure that out later. So the last con, we're a little bit scared that you don't like the idea and you're all going to leave.
We're worried that you're going to hate us for backpedaling and changing our minds and taking even longer when we were just about to start building on the back of Moose. But it just doesn't feel right for us.
We got to do it. Like, we're not really going to get the chance to do this again, I don't think. So it's just like, we just got to do it. It's just, we have the opportunity. We're just going to have to...
It's going to be really cool. You're going to love it.
I think it's going to be really cool. It's very unique. Hopefully it's not too unique that people don't want to watch it.
Well, it means we can build a proper tiny house, which is what we wanted. But it'll be like a merging of an RV with the tiny house. So it'll have like the modern feel of an RV with all the slide outs and stuff. But then it will have like a homely tiny house aesthetic too.
Yeah, but a lot of tiny houses, they're on these trailers, but they're not really designed to do many miles. They're designed to like move around a trailer park and
Once
stuff.
or twice.
Yeah, this is going to be spec'd for as many miles as we want it to do. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be really cool. God, I don't know.
Shall we talk about the plan?
Yes, we do have a plan. What we've already done is we've already spoken to the DVLA and got some advice from people that specialise in truck chassis modifications, and we've sent a letter to Mercedes to get permission.
We've looked through the manual, the workshop manual for Moose, and found some really interesting stuff, including instructions on how to shorten the chassis, what wheelbase we're allowed to go to, exactly how to like cut it, where to weld it, how to weld it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What you're not allowed to do. So you're not allowed to touch the axle at all. You actually have to cut the chassis in 2 places and then put the ends together.
Cut and shut. So the first alterations to do on Moose is over here. So the first thing we're going to do before we change the wheelbase is change the rear suspension from leaf springs to airbags. This is for a few reasons. One is that these leaf springs take up 1.7 meters. So if we were to chop the chassis and then bring all this forwards, we're not going to be able to shorten it far enough before these leaf springs hit something up that end, but then we've also got all of this overhang at the other end. The other reason is for comfort, for ride comfort, and we can also adjust the ride height, and it makes coupling with the trailer easier because we can change how high the rear of the truck is. So these leaf springs and the hangers, they're all going to go. We're going to try and keep the anti-roll bar in place because that's quite a useful thing to have. And then in here, somewhere around here, once these leaf springs and stuff are out the way, we will have our airbags. And we'll have to make a custom bracket up here to keep it all in place. There'll be all that gubbins around here. And then around here we'll have our trailing arm that's going to hold it all together. So once the suspension's done, we can change the wheelbase. It's currently 4.25 meters and we're going to be shortening it to 3.15 meters. So we're removing about 1.1 meters, which is this much, and it's coming from this part of the chassis. So it might seem kind of weird that we're chopping a chunk out of the chassis, because I thought we could just unbolt everything or take out the rivets that hold the axle in place and just move it along, but you're not allowed. Mercedes says that to shorten the wheelbase you have to chop a chunk out of the chassis and then weld it together using some sleeves and stuff. So I suppose that's what we'll do. So that's coming out of this section, and then we're going to be removing everything past about here. So we're removing another about 1.4 meters from the rear.
So about 2.5 meters in total.
Yeah.
He's going to be a little stumpy boy.
Little stumpy truck. The other things we're going to have to do is the drive shaft is going to have to get shortened. We're going to have to take out that middle bracket. We're going to have to take off the drive shaft from the engine again after putting it on last week. We'll use this prop shaft because it's adjustable and get it shortened, and then I'll have to get rebalanced. We'll just send that off to a place that does that, I think. Obviously we'll have to redo all the brake hoses and stuff, but we wanted to do that anyway. And then run the air lines to the air suspension, get the valves and the gauges and stuff. I think that's kind of it, really.
Easy.
Yeah, it sounds so simple. Cut it, shut it.
It's illegal. This will be the new wheel placement, and the back of the truck will be about here. And then we'll need to fit our fifth wheel coupling, probably somewhere around here. So we'll need to build a pretty strong subframe to support the trailer, and then we can get him MOT'd and reclassified, hopefully. And then Moose is finished. Kind of. And then after that, we just need to build the new trailer from scratch.
Yeah, we're going to look at how the American fifth wheel trailers are made, and also how the step frame trailers are made as well, and just kind of adjust it to meet our requirements. And then we'll start building the habitat on top.
Easy.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when we're going to get started because of this. I tore a ligament in my ankle. I wish I had a cool story to tell you about it, but I was just running up some steps and something went crunch in my ankle and that was it. So that's going to take a couple of weeks in this stupid boot thing before I can move around properly.
Yeah, you're not particularly mobile. Maybe we can start building the trailer while we're still finishing work on Moose.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to consider for the design of the trailer. Material choice, sizes and stuff, where to put the axle to make sure the weight is distributed. Hopefully, to keep things interesting, we can do like half Moose, half trailer updates as we move forward.
If any of you guys have experience with coach building or trailer building or wheelbase shortening, our email is roadoffgrid@gmail.com and we would love your input.
Yeah, anyone done any reclassification of trucks and stuff?
Yeah, any advice would be massively appreciated.
Or if you work for Mercedes.
Yeah, reply to our email, please.
We'll let you know how we get on. We also have a Patreon where we do weekly updates as well. Bit of sneaky behind the scenes. But yeah, that's it. We'll keep you posted and we'll see you soon.